Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm excited you're here, and if you're new here, thank you for joining me for this review of Beowulf, as translated by J.R.R. Tolkien. So before I dive into the review of this specific translation, I just want to give a little bit of context of my love for this story. So I first read Beowulf when I was 12 years old, and I loved it. I loved the action, I loved the monster fighting, I loved the epicness of it and the tragicness of it. And at the time, although I did appreciate it, there were certain things that maybe certain themes or story points that I couldn't pick up on, like the political nature of the old world or the countries of that time or whatever it may be. Certain things were just lost on me when I was younger, which is fine. I was still able to enjoy it. So that book, that story has had a profound effect on me in that I like returning to it. I like telling other people to read it if they haven't, because I'm like, it's an epic poem and it's only 100 pages. It's not very long, and it's very engaging, and trust me, you'll like it. I love talking about it with people, especially if they have read it. And I've given a fair shake, I feel like, at a lot of movie adaptations, which in my opinion, I struggle with them. And I hope one day as a filmmaker that I'll get the chance to make an epic version of Beowulf for the big screen. So we'll see. But now, jumping into this review specifically, I was very excited to read it as I'm a big fan of J.R.R. Tolkien. And now that I'm, older, hopefully a little wiser, I'll be able to dissect some of the themes and intake some of the commentary of the book and learn some things that I can share with you that you can be excited about, that you can be like, hey, did you know this? Or have you checked it out? Hopefully this will be a very engaging discussion for you guys. So I wanted to start out by kind of just going through a little bit of like the structure of this book. So it's edited by his son, Christopher Tolkien, who, took a lot of his works and then published them. And I'm so grateful that Christopher Tolkien took the time and the effort that he did to get works like this out into the world, because again, I find it very beneficial to me if I wanted to learn, say, about Old English, which is what Beowulf is translated from, which is essentially a different language. It's not like reading Shakespeare. It's like a whole different language, okay? Different words. And beyond just the fact that it's this academic thing, it's getting us to a place of observation of like stories, right? What they mean to us, what they meant to people 1,000 years ago, roughly, and what do they mean to us now? And how did it affect someone then and possibly affect me in the same way, even though there's so much time between us? Like, is that possible? What are the fundamental core human things, the spiritual things that we struggle with, and why do they resonate so deeply? Why has this story hung around for as long as it has? So at the very beginning, we have a preface and we have an introduction to the translation itself. Christopher Tolkien basically explaining his memory of his father's process of translating it, why he translated things certain ways, and what his intent was in taking those translations, organizing them how he did, and what he thought would be the most coherent, best version of this translation to give to readers. After that, we have the actual translation itself, which again is roughly about 100 pages. And then right after, we've got like a couple hundred pages of commentary, which is essentially Tolkien's lecture notes when he was a professor, because he used to teach on Beowulf and Old English and similar literature of the time. After the commentary, we have Sellic spell and we have the Lay of Beowulf, and that completes this book. So I want to discuss a little bit more about like what's in the book and things that stood out to me, but to give you a little bit of context before I dive into that, I'll give you an idea of who Beowulf is if you've never read it at all and have no understanding whatsoever. So this story is around 1,000 years old. Some scholars think it's actually even a couple hundred years older, because they think the copy that we have might be a literal copy of the original poet's work, which was older. That being said, it's around 1,000 years old. Our main protagonist is Beowulf, and he essentially is a prince to the Geats. So he wants to go meet this Danish king Hrothgar and kill this monster that's been plaguing their hall. That's the very basic premise of the story. A little bit of background of Beowulf is that he is a champion among his people, and he has superhuman strength. He essentially has the strength of 30 men, and he is a monster slayer. So they're a seafaring people, they're by the water, and he kills a lot of water monsters. So this monster that he hears of in Denmark is a great challenge for him, because he's been hearing stories about how Grendel, the monster, has been slaying the mightiest of men. Okay, so now that you have a general idea of the premise and of the character Beowulf, I should warn you now that I want to share a couple quotes from the translation itself and dive a little deeper into the translation and my thoughts on it. That being said, you've been warned, we're in spoiler territory, and if you do click off, please go read the story and come back. I'd love to continue the discussion with you and get your thoughts in the comments afterwards. Okay, so here we go. I've got them written down in my notebook and I'm about to read them out to you. By the way, as a quick aside, I've been really getting into journaling and taking notes, and it has been a game changer for me. If you've been like, oh, I like the idea of writing stuff down or tracking my habits, do it, okay? All right. Back to the quotes. So this is a quote from Beowulf himself near the end of the book when he's about to face a dragon. He says, "Fearless is my heart, wherefore I forbear from vaunting threat against this winged foe." I just love the way that Tolkien writes everything out. It's so lyrical, it's so eloquent, it's so beautiful. It is kind of Shakespearean in a way. Hopefully when I say that, that doesn't make you go, oh, that's too much, that's too hard. I really think that if you push through and get yourself engrossed in the story, you'll pick up more than you think. And I don't necessarily think it's as hard as reading something like Shakespeare. This next quote is from Wiglaf, who was the only one of Beowulf's knights who actually helped him in the slaying of the dragon. He says, "Death is more sweet for every man of worth than life with scorn." And that is in reference to the other knights because they came as a company that didn't help them out. And he was deriding them for the fact that they were cowards, essentially. I love both of these quotes. I love it because it shows the courage and the strength of Beowulf, which was something that was attractive to me when I was 12 years old, and probably even more so now through all the things that I've faced in life and just how necessary courage is. So I love the fact that even though he's old, even though this is the end of the story, he's doing something that for any man in any legend, any tale, it's the pinnacle of an achievement would be to slay a dragon. But that doesn't make it any less scary because basically dragons have no problem killing anybody. So even though he's done all these great things in life, he's an old man now. And he's wondering, like, can I still do this? And it's not even a matter of whether he wins at this point. He's built up that succession of his character and his commitment and what's right and what's wrong. And so he's committed that he's gonna face this as fearless as he can. He's not gonna take the threats of this dragon who's coming against him in his homeland. He's going to go with all the courage he can. And I love that so much. And then this quote, from Wiglaf, who helped him slay the dragon, he has a great love for Beowulf, his king at this point. They were successful, and he's just blown away by the fact that all these other men didn't come to help when their king, who's much older than them, went anyway, knowing he was gonna accomplish this task, however many men showed up. So it's an interesting quote because I'm not saying go out and tell people they're worthless or to tell people who are struggling to build up their courage that you're not worth my time, you'll never build up your, that's not the point of the quote. It's just you had a chance. We had a better chance with all of you and we did it. And you could have been a part of that process, So I just find it very interesting. And I was just contemplating of who do I want to be, right? I don't want to be the guy over here that just was scared. And now, this incredible thing has happened and it is well known that I did not participate in that accomplishment. Chose not to. I don't want to be that person in my life. There's another quote, and I read it in the commentary because they were talking about the translation of this phrase from the original poem, and I'm probably gonna butcher the way it's pronounced because this is an old language, but basically the quote is Bruk Elis Vale. Basically, literally translated, it means use all the gifts with honor. And if you read the commentary, there is context for what that means in terms of the gifts. There's an implication there that those gifts are actually gifts from God. So essentially what it means is use all the gifts that God has given you with honor. And that has just stood out to me so much. I don't need to dive into all of the reasons why right now in terms of my personal life. You're here for a book review, but it just hit me in a personal way. And that's what I love about good books, good literature, and applying yourself to learning something. So if you were to read this, maybe that would stick out to you, or maybe another phrase, but that stuck out to me. So having read through everything now, the translation, the commentary, everything in the book, I was able to reflect on it more now that I'm older, like I said, from when I was a young boy till now. And some of the things that stood out to me in greater detail, I think now versus then, were themes of your calling and your destiny and this idea of gifts in general. Like, what is a gift? What does it mean to receive one? And what does it mean to give gifts? And then obviously themes of like courage, right? And sacrifice. So in terms of like calling and destiny, it's not a very long story, but I guess maybe it's just the way that Tolkien translated it. And then again, reading through his thoughts in the commentary, something that stood out to me was this idea of who Beowulf really is. Not just this like epic action hero, right? That he's just coming in to kill the monsters, which is fun and great. Nothing wrong with it. But it seems to me that there's something about Beowulf that he's not doing this just for his glory. I don't think he has a problem with being known for these things. Like, that's just the way the world works. If you're good at something, you're probably going to be known for it. So he doesn't shy away from the fact that that's part of who he is. But that's not the sole reason he does these things. And I think that's a problem with a lot of like movie adaptations where people, they play sometimes on this idea that he's prideful or arrogant. And, you know, maybe a little bit here and there when he's younger, but it's not something that is this strong character flaw. I see Beowulf as this like, I'm good at this. It's a gift that I have been given by God to slay monsters. And I think when you operate in something that you're good at and it's going well, there's no other feeling really like it. It's a special feeling. And I hope everyone watching, listening, whatever, gets to experience that in their life. And it doesn't have to be literally slaying monsters. It doesn't have to be this big showy thing. It could just be something at your work. It doesn't really matter, but like if you're good at math, for instance, and that helps somebody, like that's a beautiful thing. If you enjoy what you're good at, as silly as it may sound, he's good at killing monsters. You know, he's good at using his strength to protect other people. So I love the fact that he doesn't shy away from it, because there's points when it's like, even though he knows he's strong, it's not always a guarantee he's gonna walk away, especially with Grendel and Grendel's mother. He doesn't know, like so many men have died, so many men have tried certain things. And I just find it very interesting that he, as a young man, still presses onward in his calling and in his destiny, because it's the right thing to do. Obviously, you know, courage plays a part in that, because even though he knows that he's strong, fear can still come into play, right? It's like, okay, I feel pretty confident, but this could be the night I die. But then it's always this idea of like, okay, but even so, I'm gonna go out doing the right thing. I'm not gonna be known as the man who didn't try. I'm not gonna be known as a coward. I'm gonna give my life for other people. Because again, we're in spoiler territory here. The end of the book, you know what happens. He faces the dragon, they're successful, but the dragon takes him out too. So to me, that's always been fascinating. This idea of like, what if Beowulf just had this reputation and just solely lived off of it and didn't actually kill Grendel or just scared him away or something? You know, who knows? Like you can make up a bunch of different scenarios, but like it was just living off his reputation. And then a dragon comes, like what is he then gonna do? So I guess reading it this time, it showed me that battles, obviously, they're not always easy. But if it's the right battle, then it's worth it, because again, he's an old man by the time he gets to the dragon. But if he didn't fight the battles beforehand, he wouldn't have been ready. And no one else most likely would have been able to take out this dragon. So there's even potential that if he had faced this dragon in his younger years, that he might not have died. It still would have been really hard, right? It's still a dragon. But even in his old age, he had developed his character. He had developed who he was, and he had built up himself to know, well, I'm old anyway. What reason is there to be a coward now? You know? So it's like it carried him all the way through his life, which is such a beautiful thing. So the thought came into my mind is like, okay, are you gonna fight the battles now? Or are you just gonna keep putting him off? Because at some point you're gonna have to face the dragon, you know? And are you gonna be ready for that? I also really liked this theme of gifts and gift giving. And again, there's more details culturally of how they did that kind of in Hrothgar's Hall and how a king would bestow gifts on a knight and so forth. But I love the fact that when Beowulf gets gold, when he gets these gifts from the king, he also goes back to his homeland and he gives those gifts to his king. And you're thinking like, well, he deserved that. Like he killed all those monsters, he killed Grendel and whatnot. It's like, why would he give them to his king? And his king is rich for sure. It's like, he doesn't need those gifts. Like, why would he do that? It just speaks to the character of Beowulf in general. Again, as a warrior, as a man, and who he was. And I love that. I've always been attracted to generous people, not just because maybe I'm getting something, but just I see that that's who they are all the time. I see that they're always generous with people. They like to give gifts to other people. They like to help people around them. For Beowulf, it's more about like the gold couldn't provide what he achieved in combat, in vanquishing a foe. Gold's fine, money's nice, we need it, we use it, that's great. I'm not like anti-money here, but it's just not the same reward as the victory. It's also his ability to show his appreciation to his king for allowing him to go operate in his identity and in his calling. So I just thought that was beautiful. I love that. So there's a lot more I could say, but for now, I'll just finish by saying I absolutely love this translation. I'm not sure what other people think about it. I've really only, I think, read one other translation of this, and I know that some are more like poetic, you know, some are more prose. Whatever your flavor is, the story is good enough to carry you through, right? And I loved his translation. I love the prose. Christopher Tolkien kind of points out early on is that the intention that his father was trying to accomplish with this translation was to give us an idea. He was trying to figure out how the original audience would have received this story and how it would have been told to them. The same type of feeling it would have produced, the same ideas and concepts, and just the way that it would flow. That's what he was trying to accomplish, was giving us like that similar experience. So who knows if he was really able to accomplish that? It's kind of impossible to know that because there's so much time separating us. But I so appreciate that that was his intention, was to kind of like transport us back in time, if you will, and experience it in such a eager and interesting way that the original audience would have received it. If you're a Tolkien fan, I highly recommend it. And if you're just a big fan of Beowulf, highly recommend it. And if you've read it, if you're going to read it, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and this type of content, please consider liking and subscribing and stick around for more. I'm always trying to give good quality content to you guys, and I so appreciate you helping me grow this channel. As always, guys, thank you so much for your time and for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.